Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day two. This is the 10 o'clock ideate stage for the KCOM Innovation Hothouse. So I hope you're all prepared for this. Had a good day yesterday. Just been in the stand-up, which was really fun. The team sees some of the faces there. So all enthused and ready to go for day two. I think we've got some cracking ideas. People are starting to submit, so that's really good. So I think Neil and I talk about this one as our most exciting phase, because this is where we get to get bits of paper and pens out, and this is where the magic happens. Rubber hits the road, all that good stuff. So the ideate is really where you want to take your idea to the next stage. So you spent a lot of time in the empathize and define stage, really thinking about your customer, thinking about what they're how they're operating, what they're thinking, seeing, feeling, what their lives are like, as chaotic as our lives might be, and trying to build up that persona so you can really get to the point where you're understanding your customer or the end user, and that's where you want to start using that as your start point based on what you've learned in order to start building out your ideas. The whole point of the ideate phase is to inspire free thought. So really that blue sky thinking, hence why I chose electricity generating ideas in the blue sky as well. You know, that's kind of that change of environment might inspire a bit of thinking there. But also sometimes you need to put constraints on there. And I know, Neil, that's one of the areas that you're quite passionate about, making sure that we constrain the thinking. And that can help too, because it can help to focus you in. It takes away the fear of all that possibility, and some people work a little bit better with constraints. We're going to talk about some of those areas. Okay, I will move on. So the first one is how might we? So this is a way of taking the problem and then trying to change your perspective by changing the way you think about it or the way you talk about the problem. So it's about changing your perspective. So it's as simple as taking your problem statement, which is, you know, thinking about the healthcare is I can't make myself understood. The students, I can't motivate myself, not wishing to be pejorative or assuming that students generally, but it's very difficult when you're faced with a blank piece of paper. You know, how do I motivate myself? And I'm not, you know, I'm not seeing as many patients as I'd like to. And the twist on it is as simple as that: is how might I make myself understood? How might I motivate myself? Or how might I see more patients? And that really does have the effect of opening things up. Problem is, it's a little bit too broad. So you need to narrow things down a bit. The other point you can go to is how might I motivate myself to complete my dissertation by next Friday? That's possibly a little bit too narrow. So the magic is in between the two. So it's framing that how might we question to open up the problem a little bit and open up the possibilities, which taking it from a problem and turn it into something more of a goal statement. But it should be broad enough to generate ideas. So that's the whole idea of the how might we, and that takes you into the next stage, so to speak. Neil, any thoughts on that at all that you wanted to add?
No, I just think I think as you say, it's just that having that tool that allows you to construct and frame your problem in a particular way, so that you can then starts to sort of just help you think about different ways and different ideas. But it's just like, as you say, asking a question is a very good way of then prompting a response, as exactly as you said.
It feels a little bit contrived asking yourself a question, doesn't it? But it does actually work, even if you feel a little bit strange doing so. So yeah. Okay. No prizes for guessing. This is actually my favorite way of doing things. So it's literally drawing the connection. So you start with a circle in the middle with the problem, what you're trying to focus on, and then you start drawing off lines with the ideas to think about the areas that you want to look at. Now you can combine this by drawing specific areas and then working as a team and sticking post-it notes or voting for certain areas or voting for certain things and kind of grouping your ideas, making an affinity of ideas all around the mind map. Or you can literally draw the mind map and you got spider legs going all over the place. You go from the central idea, then you get a follow-up idea, and then there's an idea that comes off that. So it branches off. It builds up like a tree almost, and it creates a map. And what you end up with is a visual representation of how your thought process went, which can be quite useful, because you can actually use that as almost a time machine to go back into time where you were thinking previously. The main thing is capture everything when you're creating a mind map. The other thing is you can share it with people. You can show people, how you got to the position you're in. You can show your thinking, and it acts as, for me, as a bit of a reminder to actually talk people through the journey. Because I tend to just jump straight to the solution because I've made my own mind up. But it's a great way of creating a journey, and then creating that affinity between the ideas.
Yeah, I think that's right, Dan. I think because it gives you that ability to link things and to kind of show that you've thought in a particular way, and then you can kind of take ideas on, or you can draw relationships between them. It's a really useful tool of doing that. And I think whether you're doing it, standing up and drawing something on a wall, obviously on some paper on a wall, don't just go and draw on walls, or sticking post-it notes up, or whether or not you're using some kind of electronic device to do this. It is a really good way of kind of showing the linkage between ideas and drawing affinity groups, and really kind of having something that you can link off and you can kind of continue to spur more ideas on. So yeah, really good technique, this one.
Good. Okay, this one's for our more reflective people, and this is the one where I'm less likely to be in my comfort zone. Despite the fact I'm a reflector, this one really just worries me. But if this is your thing, it's really good for working as an individual. If you've just got loads of information in your mind, you need to get that out. So it's working as an individual. You actually write your ideas down, and then subsequently you share them with the group. So it's good for as I say, for just working on your own. If you don't want other people throwing in their ideas, it's great for environments where you can't all stand up around a whiteboard or a piece of paper. And it does translate quite well into the format of this event, because you can tap into an email and you can share the email and you can facilitate it that way. So it's easier to do from this point of view. The other good thing about the working as an individual, writing the idea down and then sharing it afterwards, is you get to develop the ideas of other people as well. So you don't see it immediately. You get to kind of reflect on it, look at the ideas, and then it creates inspiration in other people as well.
I think also the other good thing it does, it helps you overcome team dynamics, doesn't it? So I think quite often that when you're doing these things, somebody will have a really good idea, everybody will jump on that good idea, and it's very difficult to then get other ideas out, because you can get blinded by your one brilliant idea. And so I think with this, what it does is it allows people to go off, and maybe people who are more introvert or aren't as comfortable with sharing their ideas within a group, it's a really good way of allowing everybody's ideas to come to the fore and develop them. So I think the other thing that you do is you develop your own idea by having to share it back with the group. So you really kind of crystallize what it is that you're trying to say, and that helps you in terms of then informing your idea in terms of how you're going to take it on.
And it does tend to it tends to limit the salesperson, charismatic person in the room who can sell any old idea, and it brings out some of the quiet people in the group as well. So it's great for that. No, that's good. And again, Neil's favorite thing, giving constraints. So he was saying about, when we were talking through this previously, it was about adding time constraints to it. So you can kind of say, right, in 2 minutes you've got get as many ideas as you can, or you set targets to it, or whatever you might want to do. It's about kind of giving people a sense of urgency, giving them a deadline, making sure there's something to work to. So it's another quite a powerful tool, despite my lack of enthusiasm for it, but I can definitely see the merits of it. Okay, so I can see we're getting questions in there. Am I okay to come back to the questions at the end of this? Because I'm in full flow, so we'll get back to those questions in the chat, but that's good to see those coming in. So constructive and destructive feedback. So this is about presenting your idea. It's you come up with an idea where you say, I think we should, and then you get a response from the group who think either it's brilliant, so you ask people to actually be constructive about an idea, and it's brilliant because, or it's rubbish for whatever other reasons. And what this does, it feels, or it sounds quite harsh, but it's supposed to be done in the spirit of development in an open setting. So it works well with teams that work well together. So it forces contribution from all of the team. Again, it's that kind of gets everybody involved, gets the quiet people talking about their ideas as well, and gets people who maybe don't have the original spark of idea, but talking about somebody else's idea and building on it. So it's a and also, which we talk about a lot. It forces positivity and negativity. So people who are overwhelmingly positive all the time, who think everything's brilliant, are also forced to go into the space where they can be a little bit more negative. And that creates interesting ideas. It takes us out of our comfort zones by actually doing that and either being positive or negative, whichever is less likely to be your way of working. And it stops cycling either in, as I said, that kind of really positive, everybody thinks it's been sold, someone's a great idea, so it's great, or getting into a really negative feedback loop, as it were.
And this is one of my favorite tools, because I think that what you can do with this is you can really kind of overcome group dynamics. And it is a bit of an artificial constraint, but what you can do is you can use something as simple as this. So you can take a pen, you can say that only the person with the pen can talk, and you can actually pass it round as a baton. So everybody has to contribute. Everybody has to think of something about the idea that's brilliant. And then in turn, everybody has to go through and have a turn with the pen or the baton, whatever it is, and think about why the idea is really bad and contribute that. By forcing people to kind of bring stuff up, it creates an environment where people aren't scared then to talk about things that they've got as concerns with ideas, or things that they've got that think, why it won't work. It's just making the environment much more collaborative, much more open. So there's less jeopardy then in contributing and having those discussions about, I'm not sure this would work, or I think this is brilliant. So yeah. And I find I use this a lot, and I find that this is, like I say, it's one of my best, my preferred methods of then kind of developing ideas as a team.
Yeah, good stuff. Brill. Okay, and I think this is artificial constraints. Again, we've spoken about constraints all around this, but previously it was kind of time constraints or thinking constraints, or trying to narrow things down. This is about constraining the bigger picture. So what if we only had X amount of money, or what if we only had X amount of time? This hothouse is exactly that. The whole reason for a hothouse is you're constrained, not restrained. I don't think we've ever restrained anybody. Constrained into a No, I think we did. No, constrained into a distilled timescale. I know some people there were a lot of raised eyebrows about presenting back in the 5-minute format at the end, but it really forces you to kind of say, look, this is distill down the idea, get the point across, elevator pitch, no matter what it might be, because in real life you don't get all the resources you want. So this is great. So what would you do if you only had X amount of money? What would you do if you only had X amount of time?
It really gets. It just. Sorry, no. I was going to say, it really gets to the heart of what it is that you're trying to do, and I think that's the thing. So if you said, you've got to do something by tomorrow that's going to help you solve this problem, it really gets you to the heart of what it is that you need to do to solve that problem. What would you do if you had all the money in the world? Tells you about maybe the things that you're going to do that are nice to haves within your solution, or within your the thing that you're going to build, but you maybe don't need. And then if you kind of, as Dan says, you open it up and you widen it and you constrain it, you're starting to help just prompt your thinking so that you can really think about the most important things about the solution that you're trying to build. And you can have some fun with it as well. What would you do if you were going to only use a particular type of thing to build it? What would you do if you were only going to build it so that it could only be used in a particular place? It's that type of thing that you can then really start to hone in on the important stuff.
Yeah, bro. Okay. And so collecting ideas, how? And I see we've got one in the chat there. Kerry's helping us out already with Otter Transcriber, but I've never heard of that. So that might be an interesting one to check out. Neil, Lisa, have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I'll be looking at it now.
Oh, no, that's interesting. Yeah, so that would be good. We kind of thought about things like cloud documentation. So like Google, Microsoft, Apple all have their own cloud documents where you can update things in real time, and you can both work on documents and edit all at the same time. So they're really good. You can use just write them down so you revisit them later. You can use the website that we've set up is a great way of using that tool. So you could use that just to kind of collect the ideas and continue to keep updating that as you go. You can use things like Mind Mapper or Lucid Chart. These are online tools, again, cloud tools, which you can keep adding to. Anybody can access it because it's in the cloud, so it's easy to get a hold of, and you can update that in real time. There's loads of different tools, and I'm sure you guys can think of loads more. I feel almost constrained because I've got we use Google all the time for this kind of thing. We'd use calls, but there's loads of great ways you can do it. Some of the things would even work over email. The silent brainstorming work on that. But the main thing is making sure you write everything down. The ideate stage is about, as we said, I think we said that right at the beginning. Don't throw anything away, because what felt like a bad idea on Tuesday morning, come Thursday morning when the pressure's on, you might be able to combine those two things. And as we often say, innovation isn't about thinking about one brand new idea. It can be the combination of a couple of ideas, which actually makes something that's greater than the whole. So that's the key point for me there.
And I think in terms of how you can store your ideas as well, as that kind of advise clients all the time, really that technology selection isn't about pick the technology first. It's about thinking about how you need to use it and how you're going to need to share those ideas. So sometimes it can be just as simple as pick your phone up and take a picture of the wall. Because you've got a lot of post-it notes on there, you can take a photograph of it, you can share that round, and you can still communicate really easily with everybody about all the different ideas. Or it could be that you need to more formally record them in a particular way, so therefore something like an Excel or a particular tool that you might want to use to collect those ideas is better for you. And think about where people are, how they need to be able to see those ideas, how you're going to need to be able to go back and reference them, and what you're going to be doing with them, and then select the tool from there. Don't pick the tool first and then go for it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So that rounds out our slides for today, but I'd like to have a look at some of the Q&As. What did we see? Did I see one about a wireframe, or have I made that up?
Yeah, I think
Kerry had one. Yeah, about, can we talk about wireframe?
Yeah, so don't be, sorry, go on, Neil, you want to say something?
I was going to say, so wireframe we would think about would probably be in the stage after ideate, in terms of if you were walking through the process. And wireframe is really around how you can start to test your ideas out with the people who are going to be using your solution, or who are going to be impacted by the solution. So it's normally you can do a visual representation or a mock-up effectively of what you want to build, and then you can give that to somebody so they can have a look at it, they can get an idea of how it might look or feel, or how they would interact with it, and then you can get some really useful feedback without actually having to build the full thing. So quite often for things like applications, if you're making like an app on a phone, or if you're building a website, quite often designers will build what it's going to look like and how it's going to work first before they'll actually then code the functionality. And a wireframe is a really, really useful tool of being able to do that. So draw a picture of it basically, and share that with the person to see what they think.
And that's it. It's just a clever way of saying that it can be a piece of paper. It can be something you build out of cardboard. I know when people test devices, they literally build the thing physically out of cardboard or some other material that's cheap, just so you can get a feel for what it's like in your hand, and so on and so forth. So there's loads of ways of doing it, but it really is just it's a software way of saying, do as a sketch, will you please? That kind of thing.
There's some quite cool applications that you can use. There's a thing called InVision. I'll put it in the chat, but that actually allows you to build a full application. You can see it on your phone. You can see how it would look and feel as a web page or as an app, and then you can actually interact with it, but you're not actually building any of the functionality. And some of these things are just free shareware tools that quite often designers will use to be able to do that. So we'll send some links out for some of those that you can actually have a mess about with and try if you want to build some wireframes.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
We've had a few questions actually, just not on this session, but just from the teams independently about, for the purposes of this hothouse, because obviously there's lots of different ways of either physically or not physically building your kind of prototype or your ideas. Some of the questions have been around what are we expecting as the kind of judging panel for people to come back with, and how do they demonstrate that in the kind of the panel session at the end? Have you guys got any kind of thoughts about what you might like to see? Might be worthwhile just covering a bit of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've put constraints in there, so it would be great if we can get it onto one slide. So if your picture can be a single slide, or as whatever you can present in that time. We think a single slide is possibly the best way, because it's just a great way to just have it all in one place, plan on a page type of thing. To throw that up. So if that's pictures of what it might be, or some kind of a screenshots if you built something. All this kind of thing will be as much content as you can get in there. Also, the site where you're collecting the information. So in the web form that we've put together, you keep submitting in there. So get the information in there. So we will be looking at that as well. So we're looking at the background information too. But yeah, that single slide is the best way to present that back. In whatever visual way you can, but it's all about that ability to actually talk it through in that present back. So try and make as big a splash as possible. Start with the idea and then the detail thereafter. And I think, go on.
I was just going to say, so if people are using some of these things to actually physically build stuff, or they've got ideas which they're doing in different sessions, they can kind of take pictures, or they can build it, or they can.
Exactly.
So they can use any of them, basically, can't they? However works best for them. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think the key.
Sorry, I just want to finish on. We say one slide because we're adding the constraints. If you use 3 slides to talk to your one slide because you've got like several pictures when you're just firing through it, that's fine. But just remember, your time is short, so don't come with an 18-slide deck and expect to get through it all.
And I was going to say, I think the key thing for me that I'm looking for, that I want to be able to take away from the teams, is that you've really clearly understood the problem that the person faces, and you can really clearly articulate that. And then that you're really clearly articulating what it is that you're going to be doing to solve that problem. If you want to call out a little bit of the process that you've gone through to do that, then that's absolutely fine. But if you just want to put a picture up of something as a wireframe, or if you want to put a mock-up as a prototype and say, this is what we've done, but it's really clear about what the problem is that the person faces and what you're doing to solve it, because that's the most important thing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Did I see one from Raymond as well?
You did, yes.
Scroll. Some ideas will have different timeframes for implementation. How is it best to present the ideas when that's the situation? Well, my old favorite's a timeline. So, present what you've got back today, but then also talk about how that might develop over time. Because I think, as Tim said, the KCOM part of this, the pledge from KCOM, is that today is just the start of the journey, and the good ideas will continue to be revisited. I love to just draw a timeline out. Basically, this is where I am today. This is where the implementation is today, but this is how it'll develop overall over time. This is where I expect to get to. I'm guessing that will be my take on that question, if I've understood it correctly. Neil, anything?
Yeah, and I would say, obviously, as we'll be talking about this afternoon, won't we, Dan? In terms of, if you've got that kind of that timeline in your mind, you might have different ideas in terms of when you need to implement things. It might have a different sort of maturity level that it would need to get to at different stages as well. So what do you need to be able to implement to help people with the problem tomorrow? What might it look like in 5 years' time? And then you have a timeline in terms of being able to implement things against that. So I think quite often, so long as you've got that different horizon lines in your mind, you can think about what you're building against those different horizon lines. And I think when we talk this afternoon about how you can build prototypes and how you can start to develop a minimum viable product, which is something that I think you'll probably find useful, Raymond, if you come to that session, and we can help you with some of that stuff.
Brilliant. Any of these questions as well? I know this is probably going to inspire some questions. If you want to reach out to us, you can get hold of us through all our usual channels. There's a stand-up at 12:30 as well, which is an interactive session, so feel free to come into that and ask any questions. And Lisa, are we doing a Q&A straight after this one?
Yeah, we'll pop over onto the Q&A session in the sessions button. So if anybody wants to ask us physically, verbally a question, we'll be over there for the next 10 minutes. So if you want to join us, then pop over.
Okay. Shall we wrap up? That's everything I've got to say. Neil, was there anything else? I know you're very passionate about the ideate stage.
I think the other thing that Kerry was asking was, as a mock elevator pitch, how can you do it? I think that's also a really good tool for thinking about how you're going to build ideas. So if you can build constraints in like that, and I know that Kerry is particularly a fan of Twitter, so you think about, is that a constraint? How would you articulate your idea within 140 characters? That type of thing. It really helps you to refine about what's important about the idea, what you're thinking about, and the ideate stage for me is really honing in on that importance, the kind of kernel of the idea that you really want to articulate and get across. So all of those things are useful, and then they'll really help you when you're playing back that idea to other people as well.
It was Amazon, wasn't it, who expect you to write the press release for your product before you even take it to a meeting, which I think is fantastic. So you've got to get it really punchy as to what it's going to do. Otherwise, you don't even get on the floor. But that now I'm thinking, you could even put a slide up with your tweet on it, a mock-up of a tweet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably don't do that because I've never done a conference like this before. So, yeah. But,
But great idea, Dan. Good idea. No idea was bad.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much again for your time. It's been great. Really good to see the questions in the chat there. And we'll now head over to the Q&A for a 10-minute chat through any questions you might want to have face to face.
Great. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks so much.